Alright guys, we're in Numbers 31 today, and this is a somewhat controversial passage because a lot of people take things out of context, and I wanted to maybe propose an answer to some of the issues that are going on here. So we had seen previously that the Israelites went up against the Moabites and the Midianites, and God was not with them. They tried to go and conquer the land on their own, even though God had told them that you're not going to be allowed into the land, only your children are. And they tried to basically kind of force God's hand and go in, and as a result, they lost the battle. So then we had the issue going on with Balaam and Balak, and Balaam was the kind of a medicine man, priest, if you will, but he wasn't an Israelite. And then Balak was the king who tried to hire Balaam to curse the Israelites, and he couldn't do it. But what we did see was that the Israelites did go up against the Midianites here in the start of chapter 31. And basically what happened was God tells them, okay, tell Israel that now I'm going to let them go up against the Midianites, and I'm going to allow them to win. And it says in verse 7, and they warred against the Midianites as the Lord commanded Moses, and they slew all the males. And they slew the kings of Midian beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi, Rechem, Zur, and Hur, and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also, the son of Beor, they slew with the sword. So when they went up, they also slew this, medicine man type guy. They slew him as well. So as you go on, it talks about how they killed only the men, they brought the women and the children home, and there's something that's kind of revealed in the middle of this passage here that if you don't catch this, it's going to make everything just really sound bad. But in verse 14 it says, and Moses was wroth with the officers of the hosts of the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds and captains which came from the battle. And Moses said unto them, have ye saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. So one of the things that we saw was that previously in some of the other chapters that when they went up against Midian and it didn't work, and then basically there was kind of this intermarrying thing going on where the guy Phineas comes in and he ends up stabbing this guy and his wife because he married into the Moabites, which they were forbidden to do. Now this, on the surface, this sounds like it's some sort of a racial divide, but understand that as you're going through this, things are explained in more detail as to why they weren't to do this. Basically, what happens here is it's revealed in verse 16 that Balaam had, even though Balak had offered Balaam money to curse the Israelites, and every time Balaam tried to curse the Israelites, out of his mouth, because he was because the Spirit of God was upon him, out of his mouth would come blessings, and he couldn't curse the Israelites. But what Balaam did do was he passed knowledge on to Balak and said, look, the reason why God blesses Israel is because of their obedience. If you can get them to disobey by marrying into the Moabites or the Midianites, then God will curse them. God will bring a plague against them. And this is actually one of the things that happened in the previous chapter with Phineas. So there was an incident where a captain had married a Moabite, and they had gotten together, and lots of people were doing this, and Phineas comes in and he stabs both of them through, and God said that he kind of stayed his judgment, and only those who had basically slept with the Midianite women had to be killed, the Israelites. Now we're going to continue reading here, and then I'm going to explain something. All right, so in verse 17 it says, "Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known a man by lying with him. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourself." And then he goes on to explain kind of a cleaning passage type of thing. It says, "Do ye abide without the camp?" So he says, live outside the camp for 7 days. "Whosoever hath killed any person, and whosoever hath touched any slain, purify both yourselves and your captives. And on the 3rd day, and then again on the 7th day, and purify all your raiment." And he goes on in verse 23, and he says, "Everything that may abide the fire, ye shall make it go through the fire, and it shall be clean. Nevertheless, it shall be purified with the water of separation." So basically what I want to get to here is there's a situation where they were told not to marry into the Midianites. Basically, they were told not to sleep with the Midianites or the Moabite women. They did that, and as a result, the Bible talks about they get this plague put upon them. It doesn't say what the plague is. They were told to kill all the people who had basically slept with these Moabite and Midianite women. Then you have the incident where he tells them to go in, and they killed everybody, all the men, but they left the women. Moses tells them, "No, go back, kill all the women and kill all the younger men. Only the women who have not slept with a man are allowed to live." Now this is what I'm proposing here. A lot of times this passage is looked at just purely at surface level, and like Job had found whenever he tried to converse with God, God doesn't always explain his motives and his rationale and so on and so forth. He doesn't explain when he's giving dietary restrictions why they're not to eat pork. But later on, we find out that pork, if not cooked properly, has got these worms in it, and they can you can become infected by it and sick and so on and so forth. And we find out that even though God didn't prescribe the reasons why he did everything the way that he did, he said, this is what you're to do. And we find out later on that there was actually a pretty legitimate reason there. So in this particular case here, we have a case where the men are killed for sleeping, the Israelite men are killed for sleeping with these Moabite women. And one of the things that I'd like to propose here is that the plague that went about was probably some sort of an STD. And in an effort to keep that from spreading among the Israelites and defiling the entire tribe, the decision was made to kill all those who had received this plague, this disease. Then, as they go up against the Midianites, once again, they killed all the men, but they left the women. The women, thus, are still infected. They still have a problem. And one of the things that I've done some research on, and I'll post a link to the article, but there's an article in Scientific America from 2008 that talks about genetically passing on certain STDs. One of which that they studied was herpes. And herpes, they found, will pass on genetically, not just through the placental wall, but it will also pass on genetically. Something else that can be looked at is what's called Y-inherited genetic traits. So not just genetic traits, but also in the sense of diseases. There are certain diseases, including STDs, that are more susceptible to that Y gene. Now that Y gene is what makes you a male. Despite what popular culture says, women have 2 X genes, men have a Y and an X. So if a woman can become infected with an STD, but cannot pass it on other than through sexual contact, but a man can pass it on genetically through that Y-inherited gene, then you have an incident where all of the women have to be killed if they're infected, and all of the men have to be killed because even if they are not active carrier or actively infected, they can still become carriers and pass that on. So you have an incident where God plagues the Midianites because they're doing something that they weren't supposed to do. They end up with this disease. The Israelites start sleeping with them. The Israelites start getting infected. God says, kill all the infected Israelites, kill all the infected Moabites. and Midianites. And the only people who are not going to be infected by a Y inherited genetic disorder is those who do not have that Y trait and who have not participated in sex, in that case being the women who have not slept with men. So I wanted to propose that solution for this passage. I think it makes sense. And again, this comes down to how we view God and his character. God is either holy and just, or he's just mean-spirited. If you're that unbeliever type and all you want to see is the mean-spiritedness, you're not going to ever look beyond the surface to see if there is an actual reason why. And up until 2008, when Scientific American posted this study, probably most people never even would have taken the time to look. But we see here that there is an actual legitimate scientific basis for doing what it was that they did, including purifying their clothes and all their weapons, as they were told to stay outside the camp for 7 days, run everything that was metallic through fire, and then wash it clean, wash all their garments clean, because their garments would have been covered with blood, and basically just rid themselves of any possibility of this plague coming back into the camp and reinserting itself among the Israelites. So something I wanted to propose to you guys. All right, you guys, God bless.